Ever wonder why some treasures stay buried? Not because no one can find them, but because something doesn't want them found. Tonight we're going deep into the northern wilderness, into a place where greed whispers, fires die without wind, and anyone who enters is either claimed or never seen again. This is the true story of the Hollow Ridge Mine, and the gold no living soul has ever escaped with. Did you know 2 treasure hunters once found millions in gold? But only one walked out of those mountains alive, and even he vanished soon after. Our story begins in 1870, deep within the brutal, frozen wilderness. 2 prospectors, Elias Crow and Mason Thorne, best friends, partners, practically brothers. For weeks they wandered those ridges, starving, exhausted, ready to quit, until one morning sunlight struck a cleft in the rock, and something glittered back. A vein of gold so bright, so pure it could rewrite their lives in an instant. Rich, unimaginably rich. But that night, everything changed. The forest grew unnaturally quiet. Their fire, strong moments before, shriveled into a dying glow. And between the 2 men, greed began to slither. Soft at first. A whispered disagreement, a spark of anger, a silence that should have meant sleep. Instead, it meant murder. Hours later, while Mason slept, Elias crept close, hands trembling, and brought an axe down into his friend's skull. The sound echoed once, then the woods answered, because as Elias dragged the body toward the fire pit, the forest erupted around him, with shrieks. Not animal, not human, something in between, twisted, furious. As if the trees themselves were crying out. Smoke didn't rise. It curled backward, sucked into the dark as though something unseen was breathing it in. Elias panicked and ran, branches tearing his skin, voices hissing behind him, convinced Mason's spirit had risen to hunt him through the pines. But he wasn't alone in those trees. High on a ridge, 2 indigenous scouts had witnessed everything. The argument, the betrayal, the killing. They carried the tale to their chief, who placed a curse upon the mine and forbade anyone to ever seek the gold again. Elias stumbled into the nearest town days later, mud caked to his skin, eyes wide, babbling about ghosts and shadows and a darkness that followed him. He confessed the murder to the town pastor, but kept one thing secret: the exact location of the mine. The pastor listened, pretended to comfort him, and quietly sent his partner, Jonas Hale, to retrieve the treasure for themselves. But the night before Jonas left, he collapsed, dead, his body full of alcohol, even though he hadn't touched a drop in weeks. And the curse was only beginning. Years passed. Then the mine's original investor, Silas Ward, spent 30 years hunting the lost gold. 30 years of obsession, and at last he found it. We know because he wrote a letter, a single page announcing his triumph, sealed it and placed it on the table beside his bed. But that same night, his cabin burst into flame. Neighbors dragged Silas out alive, burned but breathing. Yet he died 3 days later of sudden pneumonia, never telling a soul where the mine lay hidden. Since then, dozens have searched for the Hollow Ridge Mine. Some burned in mysterious fires, some fell sick overnight, some simply walked into the trees and never came out again. For 155 years, the gold has remained buried, untouched, unclaimed. And many believe Mason Thorne's ghost still stands guard, waiting patiently for the next greedy soul to wander too close. So if you ever hear a story about riches waiting in the northern mountains, remember this: some fortune isn't lost, it's protected. And sometimes the dead guard their treasure better than the living ever could. Write your country in the comments and I'll create a horror story from your homeland next.